What's up, you guys? Welcome to another edition of Honor Mail. I'm Ben Peterson, founder and CEO of Engage Your Destiny and the Heroes Honor Festival. Some of you may be asking, what is Engage Your Destiny? Well, it's a very simple ministry that engages with military veterans and their families so we can lead them into their destiny. If you came to the Heroes Honor Festival, you were engaged with, and now we have destiny opportunities. For example, like the combat veterans that are standing by 24 hours a day to resource you, to support you, and help you in any healing that you might need to go through. And you guys know you can reach out to them at any time to get support. You also, if you're on an active duty base, we have Engage Your Destiny events that are happening at Fort Bragg that you can attend and you can sign up for. And so that's an opportunity to engage with us so that we can lead you closer to healing, closer to God, and we can all find our destiny that God has planned and that He has for us. We're having another conversation this week with a great friend of mine named Richard Casper. Rich is the founder of Creativets, which is a songwriting veteran experience where veterans can actually sit down with a Nashville songwriter and tell their story, and then it will be written into a song, which then they are given as a gift. It's an incredible tool and process for healing PTSD. So this is a fascinating nonprofit that is healing thousands of veterans, gifting them songs and giving them incredible experiences in Nashville, my hometown. And so I want to encourage you, join us for this conversation. We have so much to learn from Richard, and let's grow together. Thank you so much, you guys. We love having you with us each week.
Well, hey, everyone from the Engage Your Destiny family. We're so excited to be with you this week with my good friend, Richard Casper. Richard and I have run together for several years. Before Engage Your Destiny was really getting off the ground, he had me out to go through the Creativets program, which was a life-changing experience. And so this week, we want to spend a little time with him, hearing his story and learning about what Creativets is doing and what they're seeing in the veteran community as they are changing lives on the front line every day with our military veterans and their families. So, Rich, thanks for coming on for a few minutes, man.
Thanks for helping me share my story.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'd love for you to kind of start at the beginning. I mean, you're a tried and true combat vet of the old OEF era. And man, just would love to hear, when you signed up and when you went to war and what your experience was like.
Yeah, I joined the Marine Corps in 2003, straight out of high school. My thought process was, because 2001 9/11 happened, that's what urged me to go to the Marine Corps infantry, try to be one of the first ones going overseas. And when I got into boot camp, I was still on that track of being infantry, and then I got randomly selected as a special tester within like the first 2 weeks, which I didn't know what that meant. As a Marine, I thought maybe they thought I was dumb or something. I was a special tester, put a helmet on this guy and let him go off and chew on some crayons. Like,
let him walk into that minefield.
Yeah. So they identified me early, but it was the opposite. We were working towards where it started with like 300 Marines or so. And then each time we met again in boot camp, there was less and less of us, to the point there was like 20 of us. And that's when they told us that we'd be guarding the President of the United States, either at Camp David or White House Communications. And so I was like, well, this is pretty cool. Didn't know this job existed. Ended up doing that. I still had to go through School of Infantry because my normal MS was still infantry. But then instead of going to war like all my friends in 2003, I mean, we were alphabetical in the School of Infantry. And so I had, like, my last name's Casper. So I had Carter right here, Cartwright right here. I had Cherry over here. I had Horn down here. And because they didn't get the special job, they all went straight to Fallujah. But all three of them died. Like, they were the first people in a unit. So they're the boots. So, they're the door kickers on that very first push to Fallujah. So I'm sitting here already thanking God for the opportunity, because I would have been same thing, one of the front lines people, like right in that first push as like a boot who was always like the door kicker. So then I go off to this cushy job, and I'm still getting survivor guilt even from not even going to war yet, because I'm hearing about my friends who are being picked off one at a time. And I'm up here now at Camp David. Well, I had to go to DC for 11 months till my clearance went through. Then I went up to Camp David under George W. Bush while he was there, and lived on camp. What was that?
Old W.
Yeah, I lived up there for 14 months on Camp David. It was a cool experience, but when they offered me to stay the rest of my term for the 4 years, because at that point I knew I was just going to do 4 years, I was like, I love it. This job's awesome, but I need to go to war. Like, that's what I signed up for, was like to go serve my country. It's not like to glorify war, but to go do what I was signed up to do. So I chose to go, and I ended up with the Unit 27 in the Marine Corps. And I was there for about 4 months of workup when I found out I couldn't actually go to Iraq with them because I didn't have enough time left in the Marine Corps. So then I asked them to send me to the first people who were deploying, and then they switched me over to 1st Tank Battalion, and I ended up with a tow unit. So like I pretty much went from ground infantry to mounted infantry because we weren't even using tows in the war at that time. So I do my workup with them and then find out with them that I don't make their deployment. I miss it by a month. And I'm like, well, what do I got to do to get to Iraq around? Like, what else can I do? And they said, you can actually extend just 1 month. And I had no idea. I figured extensions in the Marine Corps were like, you got to do a 4-year contract again. Yeah. I didn't know you could legitimately sign up for 1 more month. I had no idea. So I just did that. I signed up for 1 more month just to go to Iraq. Like, that's how desperate I was to go over there. And then I go there, and within the first 4 months, my Humvee was blown up 4 times, leaving me with a left traumatic brain injury. And my gunner was shot and killed beside me in December of 2006. So within 4 months, I was unworkable. I was unfit for duty. They wouldn't let me go outside the wire anymore. So I legitimately had to just sit on camp. It was either Camp Grizzly or Camp Bellawood. It switched while I was there, but it was inside Camp Fallujah. And I had to like help people fill sandbags and clean up piss bottles and do all like the crazy admin stuff while my guys and my teams were still going out on patrol every day. So it kind of sucked because they didn't give me treatment. They're just like, okay, you're too injured. Just sit over here until we go back home. So for like the next 3 months, I just stayed in Fallujah. And then what's funny about that though is I had to do my separation and TAPS before I even went to war. Like typically, you get home and you do your transitioning and then you leave. Because of such a quick time I had to get out, they made me do it before I even went to war. So I did it like a year before I got out. So obviously I didn't remember anything. So yeah, the moment I touched down from Iraq, I checked out of the Marine Corps.
So you check out of the Marine Corps, and then something inspires you to start an organization that has become, by the way, a hallmark, iconic organization here in Nashville, Tennessee. How did that even come to be?
So it was my transition. I didn't know I was damaged. I didn't know how damaged I was. I knew I had like still ringing and short-term memory issues, but I didn't know it was the extent of a brain injury because they never sent me to get a CAT scan. They never act like it was a big deal. So I just got out of the Marine Corps. Should have been med-sept most likely, because by the time like about 5 months rolls around and I start going to college and I start getting this extreme anxiety and depression, I would get so sick that I would throw up or even have diarrhea just from like having to do a speech in front of people. And this is not who I was. I used to be class clown, prom king, went to war, guarded the president, and now 18, 19-year-old kids, I can't even stand in front of class without throwing up. So I had to do one-on-one speeches with my speech teacher. Like that's how bad it was. And so that was obviously leading me into a very deep depression and anxiety because it was a completely different person. And so that's the first time I went to the VA hospital. I was like, hey, I don't know what's up, but something's wrong with me. And that's when I got diagnosed with all the brain injury and the PTSD and everything else. And that was a time frame where the VA got in trouble for it, but they were only giving out 30% no matter what you went through. So here I am, almost suicidal, like can't get jobs, can't go do speeches, and I'm 30%. That's still what I am today because I never went back and fought it. But it was just, it was incredible to know like I was out, like I legitimately couldn't leave my house. I got to the point where like the day prior, say I was eating a sandwich and it was like just a bologna and cheese sandwich and I was about to go do something. My anxieties would be so heightened because I didn't want to leave my house and I'd feel that. Well, the next day I would make a sandwich and not have to do anything. And I got anxiety because I remembered getting anxiety last time I made a sandwich. So I was legitimately getting anxiety about getting anxiety and it was horrible. But I knew that if I had positive intentions and was optimistic, just like I was with everything else in life, that I could still succeed in something. So after I get diagnosed with my brain injury and they say I can't learn new technical skills and I had these anxieties and I couldn't stand up and talk in front of people, I said, well, I still need just a degree. I guarded the president of the United States. I have the background and the experience that if I could just get any degree, I can go to the FBI, CIA, and maybe I'll feel more comfortable being like an agent again, or like someone who's in that kind of high speed, low drag situation again. And so I was like, what can I get? What kind of degree can I get? That will allow me to be successful, but it's just easy. And I was like, you know what? I'll just get an art degree. I'll just do art. And so at a community college in Bloomington, Illinois, I signed up for some art classes, first time ever. I did some drawing in high school, but nothing to this extent. And that process of learning how to tell my story without telling my story, which is something I kind of stumbled upon by having a great teacher, completely changed my life. I did this art piece about my gunner who was shot and killed that I put up to present to class, and I did it in a very cryptic way, a modern art way, using just one color to evoke some sort of emotion. And these kids legitimately understood what I was talking about, and I felt connected to them, even though they're just civilians. And that was my trigger point to saying there's something to this art thing, like when it comes to how it made me feel. And so I just dove all in, and I started doing art, creative writing. I never played music before, never wrote, never sang, never played guitar, but I had this idea. I was like, you know what? It's getting easier to talk about my injuries and some stuff through art. But what if I still cry every time I talk about Luke Yepsen, who was shot and killed beside me? So what if I could write a song? Then I could just give it to you and walk away. So I'm making sure he still lives through this song, and I don't have to cry in front of you. It's like the perfect win. So on the same time I'm going down this art rabbit hole, I'm writing music, trying to teach myself how to write songs via parodies. Like I take a Taylor Swift song, I write a parody of it, and I take an Eric Church song, write a parody of it, and it helped me learn the structure of songwriting. So I all of a sudden am enrolled in the best art school in the country in Chicago. I went from non-artist to the school where Walt Disney and George O'Keeffe and all these famous artists went. It's like the Harvard of art school. Still don't know how I got in. And then so I'm up there and I'm doing art and I'm becoming like the me I used to be. And I start also, I have a song by then that it was about Luke, but it didn't put him on the pedestal. I was still a very novice writer. And I thought there had to be a better way than this. There has to be people that can help me translate my story. And so I was working at a bar in Chicago. I met a songwriter who has 8 or 9 number one hits. And I just said, hey, if I come to you in Nashville, will you help me tell my story through song? And he said, yeah. And so traveled down here now, and wrote a song and a half with him. The thing I was working on for a whole year, in an hour and a half, we wrote one song and then started another song. And it blew my mind that this actually worked. For one, that he said yes to me. For two, that it actually worked, like the process of me just telling him my story and then writing it into a song. So from there, that was kind of like my, oh, this worked moment. But I still was like, okay, let's be realistic. I've been now studying art for 4.5 years and doing music. So this helped me heal. But is there actual opportunity for me just to bring veterans here and make them heal in just a songwriting session? So I called up a friend who has missing his leg and has burns over 60% of his body. I served with him in the Marine Corps. Well, we were in high school together. We served separately, but at the same times. Sure. So he hates telling his story. He's a very salt of the earth guy, doesn't like big crowds anyways, didn't even like him really beforehand, and hated telling his story to people, especially because his burns were on his face and he's kind of missing part of his ear and his nose. And I was just like, hey, Jesse, this might be a long shot, but if I bring you to Nashville, would you write with like a number one songwriter? The way he just said yes blew my mind, because I even told him, I was like, we'd write about something you went through. And I was like, but you don't have to worry, I'm going to be there with you. Like, I'll work with you on the song before we go out there. And then when we go out there, I'll be in the session with you. Just make sure you have a battle buddy, because I know how it feels to like be super anxious. And he said, yeah. And so I just did a quick GoFundMe, raised like $340. We stayed at a hotel out by the airport. It cost $40 a night in the same room. And we wrote at the backyard of Blackjack Billy's house, which has a little like writing area in it. And man, oh man, that 3-hour session he legitimately said that did more for me than the 6 years I spent at the VA hospital. Because when he came out of that, he instantly sent the song to everyone he knew. And everyone he knew was like, holy crap, I didn't know you thought this way. Because this song was about how he was in war for so long and training up to war for so long that it felt like home. And that's why he was comfortable over there and not comfortable over here. So it was like this thought process. And the songwriter said it changed them because hearing this thought process. And it was that moment where I was like, okay, there's something to this. And I think I can heal people with just a 3 or 4 hour writing session. And we've grown even since you come, it's same, it's different, but it's the same. It's so powerful, man. And we just keep adding stuff to it as it grows.
Wow. So when you're sitting down with veterans and even, have you seen a difference between like pre-COVID and during COVID and post-COVID and like the mindset? Have you seen a mental shift? Do you think veterans are the same? Do you think they're different? I mean, anything that you guys are seeing there in that over that period of time?
No, we've seen a lot of obviously increase of people applying for our programs, but that could also be in correlation with all the media that we've been getting, media attention we've been getting too. We've done a ton of virtual writes. Honestly, when COVID hit and I did not want to do virtual writes. I want to do in-person writes still, but it got to this point where I was like, we have to do, because veterans were waiting and I couldn't, the Opry wasn't letting people back there. We couldn't do our actual program. So I said, screw it, let's just do a virtual one. It's probably not going to be that effective, but let's try it. Let's try to make it as effective as possible. It'll only be 2 days. It'll be virtual. We'll do it on Zoom. We'll have breakout rooms. They'll all get to meet each other, then go into their rooms with their hit writers and still do the process of songwriting. And we did that session. And even though it was virtual, there was a guy, we legitimately saved his life. And he's now been a part of our program. And just, I couldn't believe it. I was like, it does work. This is insane. And because of that, now more people are open up to virtual songwriting, which we went straight into that, like only a few months later back to in person, because there's still nothing that beats that. But when COVID first hit, I instantly went to streaming audio or streaming music content and songwriting lessons and guitar lessons and anything anybody asked for, we do in the art and music space. We had over 4,000 hours watched in just from March to July of COVID years, 2020, because we instantly reacted. It was to the point where the CEO of Mission Continues, who is 15 times bigger than us, called me to ask me like how we transitioned so fast, what we were doing and what we were seeing in the veteran space. Because I said, you know what, veterans right now, they need attention, they need conversation. And if you just put up videos on tutorials, that doesn't work because there's no interaction. If you put up a real person in real time teaching the G chord, now the veteran could actually type back and be like, hey, how'd you do that again? And he gets a response. So for a lot of veterans, they said this helped us with my family. We all gathered around and watched this while you guys were doing it. So we put out 2 shows a day. It was insane. But from that, it seems like most veterans have kind of come out of the COVID kind of phase and fog they were in for the most part. People who are coming through here, a lot of things they talk about, they always at least reference COVID and lockdowns and stuff, how it heightened their anxieties and depression. So we know it has an everlasting effect on them and that we are now trying to reduce some of that, but it didn't have a big enough impact where everything goes back to that, at least on our end.
That's good. So, as we're kind of wrapping up here, when it comes to, a veteran who's struggling, and we have a lot of veterans that are watching, this weekly message or show or podcast, whatever we happen to be doing, and they need to take a first step. First, what would you say to someone who could be interested in your program, and then what would you say to someone that that needs to take one step to at least asking for help? So
I actually have a few different ways I talk to veterans, and I'm guessing the ones who are most afraid to ask for help that truly know they need it is because they think someone needs it more. And what I'll tell you is with specifically around Creativets, that those people who you think may need it more are also not seeking the help. And so if you are able to come to one of our programs, your story is going to help that person. And so it's what we always want. We've been serving our whole life. And if we know that a program that we go through that could help us could serve other people, it makes us want to do that. So when I'm talking to veterans who are just like, you know what, and I get this every time because that's how we are, like someone's better off, I don't want to take their spot. And I have to pretty much talk to them. I say, no, you're coming because your story is going to save another veteran's life. You'll continue to serve and it'll let those other people know that they have this opportunity too. So to anybody who hasn't sought help, just know that if it's in the arts and music space, if it's any kind of tangible resource that gives back to others, it's going to make you feel so good. No matter if it's say they come through our songwriting program, but songwriting doesn't work for them. The process of knowing that their song goes on and lives forever and is healing people. And we get messages all the time. I have a screenshot of a Vietnam vet who's never been to our program, but he said, Charlie, F, and Mike, I just found out about you all, and your music has helped my PTSD so much. I spent 18 years in the Army, and I almost relate to every song. And it's stuff like that to where those songs he relates to are coming from veterans who come through our program. He may be worse off than them, but he's not seeking help. So it took that song to get to him for them to seek help. So I would say your story is important. You can get help. And Creativets is a resource for that help. And we have arts and music programs around the whole country. And I didn't even go into what the actual programs consist of, but please go to the website and see. And we do stuff that's not even on there, like astrophotography in Big Bend in partnership with the University of Texas. And then right now, as we're filming this, Glassell Museum of Art is hosting one of our programs to 10 veterans down in Houston. And we have programming all over the country, but just let them know that art's an option to healing.
Yeah. So let's just do a quick breakdown for anyone who's watching. So the first is to come to Nashville and have the opportunity to sit with a songwriter, right? Which was part of your story. Can we kind of just go here's quick for anyone who wants to engage?
And so now we bring 5 veterans at a time. This is what you missed out on. We bring 5 veterans at a time. There's 5 Richards now. There's 5 mentors who fly in. And it's something we actually talked about you possibly coming back to be one of those mentors. And then they pair up, and now you write backstage at the Grand Ole Opry. So all 5 veterans get to write songs individually, but the second day we go to the Ruckus Room and we fully record all 5 songs. So now they get to see their songs come to life. So a Vietnam veteran may be next to a female veteran, next to an OIF, OEF veteran, and all the songs almost sound similar. So they know that they're not alone. They connect. There's a lot of psychology going behind that, but it's a 4-day trip. The other top tier program that we have is, and these are like the top tier, is a 3-week fully accredited art program. In the school there in Chicago, we have a 2-week one at the Glassell Museum of Art. We've hosted now 3-week at Belmont University. Belmont is one that is a hybrid. It introduces art and music for 3 weeks, but we pay for your tuition, your housing, your food, your flights. Those are more, it's easier to get you on that list and quicker to get you into those programs. They're not as sought after. Songwriting is a pretty long waiting list, but that's why we have secondary and third programs. We have partnerships with the Country Music Hall of Fame where you just do virtual lessons in a group to learn more about songwriting and you write a group song. We've been going to some military bases with songwriters and working with the Soldier Transition Battalions, teaching people about songwriting. We have partnerships with the National Ability Center, Camp Resilience, Johnny and Friends, National Military Family Association. We do programs all over the country. So if you follow us on Instagram or our newsletter, you'll see most of the stuff that we're doing. And even like art box programs in our place here in Nashville, where if you are in Nashville, we have this writer's room. We have 3D printers out there, access to any art form you want to for free. We'll provide it.
Wow. Well, and where can everyone go to get more information? Obviously, there's Instagram, but the website is?
Yeah, creativets.org, but make sure there's only one V in it. A lot of people will do creative and then vets. It's spell out creative, add a TS to the end of it. And then find us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. We're on everything, but Instagram's usually the biggest turn. Like we post the most on that.
Awesome. Well, Guardians of Honor and Engage Your Destiny following, we're so glad that you were able to tune in with us this week and hear about Creativets, one of our favorite programs that we get to partner with. And I really want to encourage you guys that this is an engagement point so that you can be led into your destiny for healing. And so I encourage you to go and check out Creativets, go ahead and check out their Instagram, follow, subscribe, and get engaged with what they're doing because I know it can radically transform your lives. Guys, we love you. We're with you in this fight, and we can't wait to see you next week.